Welcome to The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. Here's your host, the biggest record nerd of them all, Nate Goyer.
Oh, well, hey, everyone, it's Nate. Welcome to episode 543 of The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. And today, dear people, we are remembering Rozz Williams, founder of Christian Death, and very dedicated poet, artist, and lyricist. Today on the show, we're getting stories of that early period from Christian Death alumni Rikk Agnew, James McGearty, and David Glass. We dive deep into the Only Theater of Pain era with the various demos they make. We get the memories of making that album, creating the new track Flowers around the vocals of Rozz Williams, and also to hear a bit about the upcoming live performance of Christian Death alumni taking place April 18th at the United Theater in Los Angeles. I put a link to that show in this episode page. Various members of Christian Death from the past will be joining in for a reunion of sorts, playing those songs in homage to Rozz Williams, and of course the premiere of the new Rozz Williams documentary, Romeo's Distress. Now, I haven't seen the movie yet, but it does look interesting, and with a Christian Death reunion that night, I reckon April 18th will be a hell of an event. And by the way, I should let you know, Rikk Agnew, participating in today's interview, he does have some health issues, so his verbal participation is a bit limited. Rick's had some rough years as of late, but we certainly hope he bounces back soon. So again, this event on April 18th, a celebration of the music of Christian Death, especially around that early period that most people tend to recognize as their most impactful. So all right, let's get into today's conversation with Rick, James, and David as we remember Rozz Williams. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. We've got here on the podcast, we've got Rikk Agnew, James McGearty, and David Parkinson, a.k.a. David Glass. And we're going to be talking some Christian Death, Rozz Williams, and, of course, the movie Romeo's Distress. Guys, you've all had the time to work with Rozz Williams, and he seems like a very complex character. How do each of you remember him? Let's start with Rick. When you think of Rozz, do you have any particular memories that come up?
Being on tour and everything. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. All right. We'll pass to the others and we'll see if something comes up.
Thank you.
James?
Yeah, I would agree with, Rozz was a complex individual, an enigma of sorts. Always very, from the day I met him, really very mysterious, quiet, deep thinker, incredible artist. And largely, I think at the time, pretty misunderstood in terms of, what it was he was bringing to, the artistic musical world. And, I think that in and of itself is probably one of the more unfortunate things, that he really didn't get a chance to fully actualize the potential that he had as an artist, a creator.
Was it both musically and visual arts he was doing at the time? I know he started doing a lot of visual arts toward the end of his life, but was he doing those in the early period as well?
Poetry, music, art, illustrations, assemblage art, all of that stuff were every format of artistic output. He definitely dabbled in all of it and did an incredible job. He accelerated at all of it.
David, what are your thoughts? What are your primary memories when you think of Rozz?
Well, Rozz was a really interesting character. Of course, he was really into writing, more so, I think, than anything else. I think he really took that seriously. But of course, as a singer and a performer, he was great. He had that certain sense of mystery and mystique that's hard to kind of create and pretend. He just kind of had it, and I think people were drawn to that. And I think, like I said, more so than just singing, he was also really into art and writing. I was talking to Eva the other day and reminded when we were sharing a house, they found some old 8 millimeter film and they were scratching into each of the cells of the film and then to play it back, it would have images that they would draw on it. Just really unusual kind of art and collage work and stuff. And I think that, he really was kind of a perennial artist and just really lived the life of an artist.
Hmm. Did you get the impression he was searching for something?
Aren't we all? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I mean, we're all kind of looking for what's next and not knowing, and who knows if he was or not. He was ever changing. I mean, he was a chameleon. Look at all the images, all the changes in his look and his vibe, and the change in his voice from, Theater of Pain going into Catastrophe. He kind of reimagined himself a bit.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, very experimental. A word brave can come to mind because he wasn't shy about destroying something to grow something new.
Yeah, I think definitely, looking beyond what was next was very much a part of where he was taking us directionally. He had a vision of things, and we started out as a punk band before we had met Rikk. Enter Rikk into the picture, and it really, catapulted the vision that he had for the band, which was really, geared towards the darker side of life and the mysterious side of things, witchcraft, all of those type of mysticism sorts. Yeah.
So, Rikk, when you joined Christian Death, a lot of the material, a lot of the songs on that album, were you coming into the band with that music already kind of worked out and looking for a project, or was all that music created specifically for Christian Death in your partnership with Rozz?
Yes.
Yes to both?
Yes.
And can you take us through some of your memories of recording Only Theater of Pain?
Well, let's see. Where do I start?
When you guys went into the studio to record, all the material was finished and you were just ready to record, or what was created in the studio that wasn't written or planned before?
The latter. It was some of the stuff was recorded, pre-written. Some of it was come up with. A lot of it was come up with in the studio. I don't know.
I think one of the things that's really interesting when I think back on how it was, the songs were created. We had recorded together for Hell Comes to Your House. We had written a few songs and recorded those, which ended up appearing on Death Wish some number of years later, and were really never designed to be released, so to speak. They were recorded and they were stuffed to the side. And if you look at some of the tracks on Death Wish, for example, Death Wish, Desperate Hell, Rozz didn't think at that time those songs were worthy of the music and the direction he wanted to take things for Only Theater of Pain. So Rikk and I, George, were developing songs right up until the last minute. And then when we got to the studio, I think one of the most telling things was Rikk had in his mind the need for timpanis, tubular bells, keyboards, all these different things that he did in fact, create in the moment, through the development of the music, which I think was really, spontaneous and, added to the creativity that was going on at that time.
And had you guys heard all the poetry and the lyrics for everything in Only Theater of Pain, or were some of those premiered in the studio?
Yes.
Yes, definitely premiered in the studio. So I think the one thing that none of us ever really knew was Rozz had a book of poetry that he had previously written. and would really uncover that and share that with us, while we were recording each song. So we had no idea what the subject matter was, what the topics were, anything of the sort, let alone changing the name of the songs at the last minute, so yeah, it's kind of all the above. But it was very much, we were just as surprised, to hear what it was he was singing about, and the poetry that he was laying down behind the music.
I heard there was, and correct me if I'm wrong or if I heard this incorrectly, but there was an issue in the recording studio with losing the vocal track.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Walk us through that.
Well, I think, there was something happening in the studio that day. Very, very, magical. But also I think very, very telling of what was happening. The weather outside was really dark and stormy, windy. We used to describe that as shoey. And I knew I'd get him to laugh. And but that really kind of set the tone for what it was that was going on, when it came time to lay down the vocals. And Rozz, Ron, Eva were all in a vocal booth, down from where we were in the control room with candles. They had really created a special environment for themselves to perform. And after Rozz did the first song, it sounded so otherworldly that we collectively thought, just let him keep singing. All the meters were pegging, everything looked like it was recording. The performance on those songs the first time through were way beyond what it was that was actually captured on the record. And I think still to this day, for all of us that were there, that got to experience that, and the emotion that was there was unbelievable. And I think he was really sad, disappointed that nothing tracked. And so the performance that we heard on Light Theater of Pain, which everybody knows and loves, was paled in comparison to what we actually got, or had been delivered.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. So some studio snafu allowed you guys to hear it, but it didn't make it to tape for one reason or another.
Yeah. And Rick's brother, Frank, went down after the recording was done and did a check mic 1, 2, and everything worked. So it was really inexplicable as what actually transpired in that room. Okay.
Yeah. The black hand of fate for one reason or another. Tell me the story of the album art. I mean, we all know that album cover. How did that come to be?
Well, I think it really showcases the art and creativity of Rozz. Much of what he was drawing during that era was big ballpoint pen type art, and supposedly that was a self-portrait, of course, for him that picture represented. But it was just really, the level of artistry that he envisioned, and what it was that he had designed, for that record. I mean, the entire album, the border of the album, the lyrics, all of that stuff was hand drawn, purposeful, and in that era, I think they might have re-released it somewhere along the way with, snapshots of the handwritten lyrics and how he had planned to lay everything out in the album, but they had to take what it was he drew and then interpret that into graphics that could be printed at the time. So
the album was almost, the packaging and everything was almost entirely Rozz's vision. David, how familiar with, I know you came in slightly after this record. What was your experience, your understanding of Christian Death in this period before you joined?
Well, of course, I heard the album, and we had played shows. I was in a different band, and sometimes we'd be on the same bill. There was a couple nights where we did that, and the band was great, very powerful. Not only just Rozz's voice, but the band itself, and the material on the album is just, it's epic. So people at the time were really drawn to that record, myself included. And I was kind of like, off to the side. I wasn't really, I didn't, the first time I've met, Rick and James was, at the Hollywood Forever, show not too long ago. So, I was kind of at arm's length to the whole scene. I was in a band playing shows, but didn't really get out there too much. But of course, that record was a seminal album at the time. It was really powerful. The shows that they did were amazing. And, that was my perspective from, being in the audience and seeing them more so than being, any sort of, a part of any of that.
Okay. So it's only kind of recently you've got to know James and Rick.
Yeah. I mean, just like I said, I went out to the Hollywood Forever show that they did with Symbolism and got a chance to meet them. Super cool. And more recently, I've been, practicing with James, and that's been awesome. And, doing the song Flowers was really interesting. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get in the same room to do it, but still the interaction was cool, and hearing what everybody did and how it all came together was really, really neat. I really liked it a lot.
So, okay. So the new song is Flowers. Is it just one song? Are there multiple songs?
It's just the one song, and it's an old song. It's a song that Rozz had performed and recorded. And I believe he and Shaitan had a version, I think, and he also did it live a couple of times. But I don't know that he actually went in with a full band to record it. Nico had suggested that prior to him passing, he said he wanted to go in and do a proper recording with a full band, having only done it live and done the voice and piano version. So Nico suggested that we go in and do it. And, it was like, do we really want to mess with that? But in the end, I thought it might be kind of fun to do it. So I went in and laid down some drums. James laid down bass, Rick laid down the guitar, and Paul mixed it all together. And I think it came out really well. I think it's a good representation of the song. And I think it's a good recorded version.
Wow. Okay. So James, Rick, were you guys familiar with this song before recent times that you had to contribute to it?
No.
Yeah, same is true for me. I was not really familiar with the song, and so when presented with the opportunity to work on this, in much in the same way that the recent McCartney-Lennon redoing of a song, we had the technology was there to where we could do something like that, and so I think it was a incredibly unique experience, and getting familiar with the song, listening to the track and how it was that David had laid it down, was a great inspiration. And I think, listening to Rozz sing the lyrics to that song were incredibly powerful. And I think emotionally it was very difficult, to be honest, to get through, trying to write and create, under the vocal. And then, we had reached a point, I think Paul had created a version without vocals so that, once I became emotionally familiar with the song, I was able to kind of continue to work through and create my part for the song.
Oh, okay. So the emotions, hearing his voice was kind of distracting at some point to your part of building onto the song. Yeah.
Yeah. It was very emotional to deal with, thinking of the friend, the loss, what the lyrics meant, how it made me feel personally, as I'm trying to write and create to represent, what I was feeling during that time.
Mm-hmm. What in the recording, was it just like the Beatles thing? It was like off a cassette. What was the source of and what was the recording of? Was it just voice, or was there anything else?
Two sources. We had the previously recorded studio version with Rozz and piano that had been previously released, and we pulled from that as well, there was a live version that I mainly used as a template for the arrangement, and we did use some of the vocals from that as well. And I think in the end, Paul kind of merged some of it together. Nico had noticed Roz might have forgot the words in the live version, so they kind of put it together using both versions. But initially, I took the live version, I laid that down as the arrangement, and then I played along, laying in new drums to Roz's vocals, which was really surreal because I was in the studio and you got the cans on, and all of a sudden I'm hearing Roz singing like he's like right there, and it was really kind of surreal. That's all I can say. It's like all of a sudden it's like wow, and it was really intense doing that, and I just spent a day laying down an arrangement, doing some new drums, and then stepped away and let the other guys have at it. And it was a really interesting setup. And at first, when Nico brought it to me, I'm like, why? Why do we want to do this? Because I had heard that, you know, Roz wasn't too keen about some of the remixes that had been done of his material, and I wasn't sure if it's something that he'd want to be done. But Nico was insistent that it's something that he asked him, that he said he wanted to do before he passed it, that it was important to him. So I figured, okay, let's give it a try and see if it works out. At first, it almost didn't happen. The timing, everybody's busy, everybody's doing different things, and trying to pull that together almost didn't happen. And then at the last minute, I just went up to my nephew's studio in San Luis and laid it down. And then from there, it just kind of came together.
Did you remain in contact with Rozz in the later years?
On and off. I mean, I hadn't spoken to him for a while after we split, and I remained in the band for a time. But then I came back to the Bay Area. I had left Christian Death, and I came back to start a family. And Roz was living there. Roz and Eva were living there, and there was a point where they moved into a house that I was sharing with Johan, who was former bass player with us, and they were living downstairs, and we started the band Shadow Project. So we kind of reconnected that way. But then they moved back to Roz and Eva moved back to Los Angeles for a big show that they were doing at the Patriotic Hall. So, and then they moved on with Shadow Project. And then after that, my wife and I moved back to Los Angeles, and they would come over every now and then. Roz would stop by, or I went over his apartment a couple of times. Weren't, like daily close friends. I think he was closer with my wife than myself. He would call up and they'd talk for hours and talk about old movies and stuff. But it
Okay.
was good to reconnect. It was good to know that he didn't, have any animosity towards me, for all the things that had transpired. So I was happy about that. And in the end, I think, we were considered friends.
Same with you, James?
Yeah, I think Roz and I had lost touch. Rick, Roz, Casey Chaos, and Cujo went on tour together. And Roz and Eva were living in Eagle Rock area somewhere over there. And when they embarked on that tour, we basically lost touch after that, and I never really had an opportunity to speak to him again after that.
Did he continue to have good memories of that early period of Christian Death? Did he look back on that period favorably?
So I think as time passed, there was an acknowledgement or recognition that, hey, we had done something together. Still relatively downplayed, I think, at that time, because it had a gradual gathering of interest over the years. And so, starting to realize that, something we had done together was paving the way for something. So, in our last couple of discussions together, we talked a little bit about, who would have believed or who would have thought that, we had that moment of time together that was really kind of defining a genre of music, into the future.
And each of you, I assume, looks back favorably, especially in that early period. Rick, it's pretty pivotal part of your story as well. How do you look back on that Christian Death period and put it in perspective of your life and your creativity?
Um,
happy with the legacy of that album?
Oh, sure.
And how do you feel the new track Flowers stands next to Only Theater of Pain? Is there a similar sound? Like, I can't wait to hear it. Curious as your thoughts of how the two stand side to side.
Yeah, I think it stands up, to anything else that we had done.
Was the album well received when it first came out? I mean, James, when it was released on Frontier, what were the reactions?
Well, it's early enough in the game to where it didn't have the kick that it did when it first came out, because nobody was really familiar with it. So a lot of my friends, they were just like, oh, what's this? What's this? So
It was very different than what you had done previously,
yeah,
but that was by design, I imagine.
yeah, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, the deal with Frontier. Now, working with Lisa Fancher, she had financed Only Theater of Pain, or did the band create the recordings and then take it to Frontier?
Oh, I forgot. Can you
Yeah.
answer that one, James?
Yeah, I mean, in that time, Lisa did sign us, and she paid for everything. She fronted the money for us to record and press and print, distribute, the record, as we all know it. So it was very much, all of us were broke at the time, like everybody else was. We were 17, 18, 19 years old. We were all really young. And, she came in, we had, several different, offers at the time to record, with Posh Boy, being one of them, and, Enigma, not Enigma, Bemis Frame, sorry, which became Enigma later. But, between those choices, we went with Frontier, and Rikk had experience with Frontier, and that was the label that wanted us and took us to where we wanted to go at the time.
I'm curious as to why Catastrophe Ballet wasn't initially released in the U.S. I think it was just a European release only. Is that right, David?
Yeah, we were signed to a French label, La Invitation à Suicide, and he put us in the studio, recorded Catastrophe Ballet, and did a European release first. And then eventually it was licensed in the US. Most of our records at that point were done in Europe, either UK or Europe, as opposed to the US.
Mm-hmm. It would seem to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the European audience and taste probably understood Christian Death more so than the US audiences. Is that fair?
I'm not sure about that. I know in SoCal they're huge, already kind of legendary. Europe was just a little tighter for touring, a little more open, and they had really great distribution. So I think that the word spread pretty quickly over there. US, it was like East Coast, West Coast, and then you had to kind of patch it together in between. But I mean, the band was obviously known and legendary from Only Theater of Pain, and then going into Catastrophe and then Ashes, it became more of a European thing, I think.
Okay. And Death Wish, how did that come to be? I guess the label in France was looking for something else while Catastrophe Ballet was coming together. Is that what happened?
Yeah, that is the mystery of the time. How did that album come into existence? Because I think everybody's recollection is very vague. Nico had talked to Jan about his recollection of how it was he got the recordings to be able to release it, and the destiny of those songs that were recorded while we were recording Dogs, just made their way out into the world. Had it not been for whatever whatever mechanism that allowed that to take place, those songs would have never been released otherwise. So I guess consider it a positive twist of fate, even though the band never really was paid for any of that work or appropriately credited for the publishing as well. But regardless, the work got out there. It was very much the recordings prior to Only Theater of Pain, so there was a little bit of a less polished, raw format to the songs, and you got to hear that on Death Wish.
So you were surprised that it actually came out. You didn't even know it was coming out until you saw a copy.
Yeah, it came out some number of years later. I don't even know when, because I had musically had gone in a different direction, and so come to find out, whatever year that first EP was released, you could go figure that out. But yeah,
and that's the same version of Dogs that's on Hell Comes to Your House. So they were all recorded roughly around the same period, even same sessions.
Not the same sessions. We had recorded Dogs, and then we came back in, called a week or two later, because at the time there was interest from Bemis Brain, to work with us, and that's how those songs got recorded. Maybe 1 or 2 weeks later.
So revisiting this new music, Flowers, that's coming out. Which record label is distributing that? Do you know?
I don't know if there's an actual label. I think Nico is going to release it as a 12-inch, and that's going to be coming out as soon as he can get it pressed up, which takes a couple of months. And then after that, and I think he's packaging with a couple other songs on the flip side or versions, just to kind of get Flowers back out there, get this new version out there. I'm sure it will end up online as well. I'm not sure what his plans are for the song after that. He's used it in the movie. I think that was the impetus for actually getting the recording done, was to be part of the film. Like I said, he's going to do the 12-inch. That should be out, I would think, June, July, depending on how quickly they can press it. And after that, I'm not sure what he's planning to do with it.
Okay. Where is Only Theater of Pain available now? Is that still on Frontier? Who currently distributes that record?
Still available on Frontier.
All right.
There's a lot of derivative copies of it available from Frontier, re-releases, colored vinyl, variety of different permutations of that, but all available through Frontier.
All right.
After 40 some years.
Good old Lisa Fancher.
Yes.
Now, a few years back, well, a couple decades now, there was the switch from the black background to the white background of the cover. I think there's several different cover permutations early on. Even the French cover of Only Theater of Pain was different than the U.S. cover.
I think the first manifestation with the gold choice the gold ink choice that she had, was really what Rozz had envisioned for the record. Over the course of time, I think that was probably the more expensive option, to print and distribute and release. The French release of Only Theater of Pain, the gatefold, I don't know. I think Jan had creative oversight of what the record looked like at that time. I don't think anybody from the band had any input or contribution to that I'm aware of anyways. And then you look at some of the other, there was a Normal Records release, a German release that was a gatefold, and tried to stay true to the original color theme, the black and gold. And they had also wanted to make an enhanced version of the record as well. But yeah, you've seen all the colors, and then I don't remember exactly what year it was, but Lisa had also reverted to a tan background type color choice, which mirrored more closely to what the original art that Rozz had drawn, as a part of it. Again, I'm not really up close or familiar with the details of how that came into existence. But yeah, that was just another version of it that she had created.
Okay. All right. I probably should have said something in the beginning, or maybe you guys were advised that these interviews on the show, we get a little nerdy sometimes. So we'll
no problem. Yeah.
Do you know if the master tapes or the multi-tracks for Only Theater of Pain still exist somewhere?
So I think Lisa still has possession of those, if I'm not mistaken. There was a remastering that had been done somewhere along the way. I call it the last 10 plus years, somewhere thereabouts. So a lot of the original recordings and artwork, are still in her possession, and she's taken care of them over the years. You have to bake the masters in order to preserve the tape before it deteriorates. And so I think she's done all that to preserve the original recordings and remix and re-release some of that as well.
Okay, great. Now you guys have seen the documentary Romeo's Distress. Have you? I know they're keeping it under wraps until end of April.
I saw a version of it about a year ago. Originally, we were going to try to do this whole thing a year ago, but it wasn't ready. And I saw one version of it then, and I know he's been tinkering with it all this time up until now, and he's still in edit right now, getting ready for the premiere on the 18th. And it was an interesting film about an interesting person, and had a lot of really good moments and a lot of good stories from people's remembrances. I was more interested in Rozz as a child. That segment was really cool. It kind of gives you some insight about Rozz before he was Rozz Williams. And I think people are going to really enjoy it. There's a lot of great imagery. Obviously, it's going to talk about Christian Death, which was a big part of his career. But it also talks about Rozz as an artist, as a writer. And I think people will enjoy that part of it.
What did you learn about Rozz watching that film? Something you didn't know?
Like I said, I really gravitated towards more the early years. His brother and sister and his mom talk about him and shows images of him as a child. You learn about his father and, those kind of moments, things that I didn't know. I knew I'd met him when we were both like 20 and after that, but I didn't really know much about him before that. So I thought that was interesting.
Okay. I would imagine it probably brought up quite a few memories as well, yeah?
Like I said, I mean, I knew him from 20 years old and beyond in the later years. So, we spent time on the road in the studio. And then after that, everybody goes their separate ways. And then we were, out of touch for a number of years. And then I reconnected for a short time and would see him every now and then.
James, how was seeing the movie for you? Did you learn anything new about your friend Rozz?
Good news is I have not seen it, so I'll be seeing it the night of the screening. And all I've really seen is just a couple of, interviews that maybe last for 30 seconds or so. So I've not really seen much of anything as it relates to the movie. So I'm very interested to see the movie. I'm looking forward to it on that day.
Okay. It sounds like Nico may be editing it right up until that afternoon.
Yeah, very much. Yeah.
I think he's putting the finishing touches on it now. I think it's close enough that he's going to finalize it in the next week or so, about a week from premiere.
There was a documentary that was announced a few years ago, like Spiritual Cramp, but that seems to have disappeared. Do you any idea from anyone about what happened to that project and footage?
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's another person here in Los Angeles. Danny from Lethal Amounts was looking to endeavor on another Rozz Williams documentary. I would say pre-COVID, he was looking to embark on raising money and, going through and creating that documentary, but it hasn't gotten finished up to this point. So I don't actually know where he stands with that, but that was something that was a parallel effort to what it was that Nico was doing.
Okay, one didn't evolve into the other.
No,
okay,
no, they were independent bodies of work there.
There were a couple things on YouTube that were kind of interesting. They were shorter, but it was kind of documentary style. They popped up there and then they disappeared.
Yeah, a lot of the Rozz's life overlaps with early video equipment, so there's a lot of clips and footage from fans and gigs and things like that seem to be pieced together in different permutations.
I think the hard part is doing an official documentary. You have to get a lot of permissions, and that doesn't come easy in the world of Christian Death. So I think that is a roadblock to some people doing things other than just popping it on YouTube and then getting it pulled down. I think Nico's probably gone the furthest towards making an actual film and getting permission to use things and getting official interviews. I think that's been the biggest roadblock to people doing something is, you have to gather the sources from a lot of different places.
And Rick, have you seen the documentary, The Romeo's Distress, yet?
No.
Okay. You be there on April 18th and be surprised like James and everyone else?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been totally under wraps. Nico has not leaked it out. He's been very hesitant. I got an early look at it because I was helping him with some of the footage. And he's really kind of kept it out of sight for a while. He wants it to be, he wants the premiere to be really new and fresh for everybody. He didn't want to leak a bunch of stuff out.
Yeah. I'm not going to be in Los Angeles on April 18th, but hopefully shortly thereafter, I'm looking forward to seeing it somehow. I have no idea.
I know he's getting calls from different countries, states in the U.S., but also different countries around the world that are, now that the premiere is announced, he's told me that he's getting calls from a lot of South America, from Europe, and I'm assuming that Australia will be calling at some point.
Oh, yeah. Well, guys, in terms of this new song, Flowers, that's a single song. Was there any discussion of anything else beyond Flowers? Was Flowers one of a few suggestions, or was it always this one single song and that was going to be it?
It was always the one song. The way Nico tells it, Rozz spoke to him prior to his passing and made it clear that he wanted to go in the studio, wanted to do a proper studio recording of that song with full instrumentation as opposed to the keyboard vocal version that existed. And so when Nico was doing the film, his idea was to get that recorded version created, use it for the film. And that's pretty much it. I think there's some other material that Nico has, but no real talk about doing anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and for me, I think what's really interesting, it represents the perfect bookend for Rick and I to kind of close the chapter of our musical journey together, with Rozz, and in the way that it was done and how it becomes the soundtrack to the movie. I think it really represented the perfect culmination of all that together.
Mm-hmm. And when you think about, as you say, the bookends to this story, that album in particular, I mean, Christian Death is a band, but that album in particular, Only Theater of Pain, has been so influential. Many bands have picked up that flag that you guys first raised. How do you think about that period when you think about your contributions to that? How do you see that legacy?
Well, I feel really fortunate to have been a part of that. I think in a lot of respects, it was very cataclysmic in the sense that the four of us were get together for just a short period of time. To have had the opportunity to work with Rick and Rozz together to create something that is that enduring over time just doesn't happen in any musician's career. So to be a part of that, now looking back, after 40 plus years, it is really satisfying, and to know that we've all had a hand in helping create something that stands the test of time. So I think that's really special moment for all of us.
Yeah, that's an album that's like lightning in a bottle. Perfect people, perfect place, perfect time. Just happened, and totally influential. I mean, what we did afterwards is more gothic rock and classic records to some people in their opinion, but nothing like Only Theater of Pain. For anybody that was around at the time or came just afterwards. That was a seminal album, like a SoCal must-have kind of thing.
Still is. I mean, it's hard to imagine you in that studio during that storm in 1970, whatever, and thinking people are going to be listening to this some 45 years later.
Yeah.
All right. Rikk, any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. No.
Fair enough. Again, it's been a pleasure speaking with all you guys. I can't wait to see the movie. Can't wait to hear the song. I'm going to go back to the PR people and make sure I got the right links that I can direct people to pick up a vinyl copy or whatever copy they can to be able to hear the song. Good luck with April 18th. Rozz Williams, Romeo's Distress. Hopefully it'll be a premiere in Los Angeles April 18th. I don't know if it's open to the public, but I'm sure there'll be some screenings, and hopefully it'll be on some sort of streaming service soon for the rest of the world.
Yeah, the premiere April 18th at the United Theater is open to everybody. There's a few tickets left. I'm hoping people come down. They'll get to hear the song in the movie and get to see a great film about a great guy. And then we're all going to jump on stage afterwards and play some songs from those albums. And it's going to be a really cool night, really great show. There's a lot of excitement. So I hope to see people out there.
Oh, okay. So you guys are going to have a bit of a live set there.
Yeah, after they screen the premiere, we're going to jump on stage and do some songs from Only Theater of Pain, Catastrophe, Ballet, and Ashes with all, original and former members of. And it should be pretty incredible. It's my first time playing with Shaitan in many, many years, and Eva, and my first time playing with these guys ever, which is great, other than doing that recording. So it's going to be a pretty special night.
Oh, phenomenal. Now you're making me even more jealous. Well, hopefully someone will film that and I'll be able to see it from where I'm at, but wow.
I'm sure it's getting filmed. You got to be there. It's going to be a one-time only kind of deal.
I know. Damn it. I live 8,000 miles away. So, and airline prices the way they are right now, very low chance I'll be there, but it's non-zero. So we'll see if the universe can provide. Fellas, thanks again. And good luck on April 18th. We'll look forward to hearing what kind of trouble you guys have been up to.
Great.
Okay.
Nate, appreciate it.
Thanks, Nate.
Take care. Cheers.
Take care.
See you guys.
You guys.
All right. Very interested to hear that track Flowers, to find out where we order the vinyl, and of course to see the documentary Romeo's Distress. There's been a complete media blackout on this whole thing. So I'm not sure if that's disorganization or by design, but whatever it is, it's got my interest. And that's it for this episode of The Vinyl Guide. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks to everyone who's sharing these episodes on social media, up on Reddit forums and Facebook groups. Those of you who are leaving positive reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, that is awesome. And of course, those of you who are Patreon supporters, patreon.com/Vinyl Guide. Well, that is friggin' brilliant. Thank you so much. We'll be back shortly with a brand new episode. So until we talk next time, you all behave yourselves. And thanks again for listening to the Vinyl Guide podcast. Cheers.